The bachelorette party before the wedding. My good buddy requested a song. The fiancée picked up the microphone. She took the initiative to sing along with him. I didn't expect that. As she sang, my fiancée suddenly started to cry. I turned my head and smiled at my good buddy. She actually cried while singing. What's there to cry about? As I was saying that, I found my good buddy was also crying. Seeing Daniel's eyes reddening, tears fell down. I was momentarily stunned. When our gazes met, Daniel quickly sniffed and tried to force a smile. He said, "This song is truly touching." Right after that, Emily's hand quickly reached out in front of me. She hurriedly grabbed a few tissues and handed them all to Daniel. "Wipe your tears," in a hoarse, choked voice. It sounded like thunder in my ears. One is my fiancé who is getting married tomorrow. The other is a good brother I've known for over 10 years. They sing love songs to each other like this. Did they sing until they cried? I almost started doubting this world. Daniel didn't take the paper Emily handed him. He smiled and said, "Emily, long time no see. Your singing has improved a lot. Just practice when there's nothing else to do." The two of them looked both natural and somewhat awkward, compared to my previous impressions of our interactions. It seems like nothing has changed. I felt a little more at ease inside. I comforted myself. Maybe I was overthinking it. They say good songs can touch people's hearts. Perhaps they were just moved by this song, remembering stories from the past. I tried to calm my emotions. I quickly stood up and said, "I'm going to the restroom." I didn't go to the restroom. Instead, I hid in a nearby fire escape to smoke. Ever since being with Emily, because she doesn't like the smell of smoke. So I quit smoking, but every time I'm feeling down, I still sneak away to have a smoke. Nicotine calms me down a bit. I was about to push the door and leave. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice beside me. "Don't let Christopher find out," Daniel whispered to me. "Let's talk about it online." My face turned pale. I quickly hid on a lower floor. All I could see were Emily and Daniel's backs. They were standing face to face, like tightly entwined trees and flowers. On the surface calm, but underneath already tangled. Emily was suppressing her emotions. She quietly asked, "Daniel, do I no longer have the right to help you wipe your tears?" She reached out her hand, slowly wiping Daniel's tears away. "When we were playing just now, I smeared a lot of cream cake and beer on Daniel's face. Now those things are all over Emily's white dress." Daniel asked, "Isn't it dirty?" Emily is a neat freak. She particularly cherishes her white long dress. Once, the white dress she changed out of was just placed on my bright-colored suit jacket. She threw a fit. She said angrily, "This bright jacket will bleed color." I frowned and replied, "Of course, I will wash colors separately." "Emily, I've had problems washing your clothes." Her expression changed repeatedly. In the end, she held back her anger, but she still couldn't hide her dissatisfaction. "You know, I'm particularly cleanliness conscious. This jacket is what you wore while filming. It must be covered in a lot of bacteria. I think everyone has their own special habits. Emily's obsession with cleanliness is better than her being scruffy. So I always try to be tolerant of her so-called cleanliness. But now, this precious white dress has been stained over a large area," she says. "It's not dirty." "Daniel, don't you remember? This is the gift you gave me on my 18th birthday. For tomorrow's wedding, I'm wearing this dress to the ceremony. It feels like you and I are finally getting married." I suddenly feel cold all over. I have known Emily for 5 years. We've been in a relationship for 3 years. Her 18th birthday, that was already 10 years ago. How did they both deceive me, acting like strangers under my nose for so many years? I always thought meeting Emily was my luck. She is a promising associate chief physician. At just 30 years old, she qualifies for promotion to chief physician. She has a great figure and looks outstanding. Even when a patient secretly filmed her and posted the video online, it caused quite a stir. A perfect woman like her actually fell in love with me and even took the initiative to pursue me. At first, I felt like all of this was a bit unreal, but it didn't take long. I was moved by the sense of security she gave me. Her life is very simple. It's just the hospital and home. There are no other men around her. Her phone has no password. I can check it freely. Every holiday, he would plan meticulously. He never neglects the sense of ritual. That night when he confessed to me, he even prepared a whole truckload of roses. He took romance to the extreme. She pursued me for 2 years. No matter how I rejected her, she refused to give up. My friends all envied me. Christopher, your goddess is so persistent in chasing you. Did you save the entire universe in your past life? I come from a single-parent family. I originally had no good feelings about marriage. I felt it was like a tomb, but because of her, I mustered the courage to try. I thought I could break free from the influence of my family, change my view of marriage as a tomb. But unexpectedly, a love song suddenly made me realize one of my feet has already stepped into the tomb of marriage. I hurriedly sat back down on the KTV sofa. My friends urged me to sing a song too. In the midst of the noisy voices, I firmly refused, but my eyes kept on the phone on the table. It was Emily's phone. Although her phone had no password set, she once told me I could check her phone anytime. However, in our 3-year relationship, I had never really looked through her phone. Perhaps it was because I had an inexplicable trust in her. This trust made me never doubt her. Now, I really can't hold it in anymore. I secretly picked up her phone. I quickly scrolled through her WeChat. In her chat history with Daniel, there were only simple New Year greetings. I couldn't see anything special. I was puzzled. I wanted to put down the phone. Suddenly, Emily's Alipay received a transfer notification. I got nervous. I accidentally clicked on it. I didn't expect this unintentional action would suddenly make me understand everything. All these years, they had actually been communicating through Alipay's transfer interface all along. I was so shocked that I broke out in a cold sweat. My eyes widened. I kept scrolling up to view the chat history. One of the transfers was for 140 yuan. The note said, "Daniel, Happy New Year. Long time no see. I really miss you. I transferred 200 yuan to you. By the way, Daniel, did you eat mooncakes during the Mid-Autumn Festival? I still remember that year in our second year of high school. You remember when we made mooncakes together at school? Today I made some again. I have already sent them to you. Remember to check your mail." I still remember that time. Emily, who never stepped into the kitchen, suddenly started making mooncakes. I curiously took a bite. She immediately said in a cold tone, "This is specially prepared for patients as requested by the hospital." I pouted in dissatisfaction. "It's not like it's something particularly precious. Is it really necessary for you to be so serious about this?" Emily sighed and patiently said, "All right, in the future, I'll make a portion just for you. That should be fine, right?" After that incident, she never made mooncakes again. Now I finally know where the mooncakes went. It turned out it was my good friend. I continued to read without blinking. The more I read, the colder I felt inside. I flipped to Emily's earliest transfer record. When I saw that message, beads of sweat dripped directly onto the phone screen. Transfer 52000, with the note saying, "Daniel, don't try to persuade me anymore. Since I can't be by your side as a lover, then let me protect you as a good friend's girlfriend. I can't imagine a future where I can't contact you anymore, at least, after being with Christopher. I still have a chance to see you in the end. I wish you a happy marriage. May you be forever happy." My whole body trembles. The dense words gradually blurred, turning into swirling black mist. I can hardly see. That's right. Daniel has a wife. It's a marriage arranged by the family. There are no feelings between them. All the truths are laid out before me. I have completely sorted out the ins and outs of the matter. It turns out, this so-called happiness of mine has been like this from the beginning until now. It's basically a joke. Christopher. A familiar voice pulls me back to reality. Emily is back, standing in front of me, looking down at me. The light shines on his face. It makes his expression seem a bit gloomy. She asks softly, "What are you doing with my phone?" I act unusually calm and composed. I quickly exited Alipay, locked the screen, put the phone back on the table. I said with a calm expression, "My phone is dead. Can I borrow yours to make a call?" Emily looks a bit suspicious. I smile and change the subject. "Where have you been? Why did it take so long?" Emily's thoughts are interrupted by me. A hint of panic shows in her eyes. She hurriedly made up an excuse. "I just got a work call. I stepped out for a bit." Daniel stands up and says, "Old Christopher, I have something at home. I have to leave first." He gently hugged me. He patted my shoulder. He carried a faint scent of jasmine. "Happy wedding." I also patted his back in response. I asked him, "Is she coming to pick you up?" Daniel smiled helplessly. He said, "Let's take a taxi. You know it too. We are just in a marriage of convenience. There are no feelings between us. Why would she care about me that much?" I saw a hint of pity in Emily's eyes. She even took a step forward. She proactively said, "How about I? Or you can take Daniel back." I interrupted Emily's words. My tone carried a deeper meaning. Daniel's expression clearly froze for a moment, but soon he chuckled softly. He said half-jokingly, "How could I possibly do that? Today is your guys' singles night. I've never seen you shy before." I stood up, hold onto Daniel's hand, pushed him forcefully towards Emily. She immediately reached out and tightly hugged Daniel. Although they quickly separated, the familiar gesture could not be hidden at all. I couldn't help but smile. It turned out they were so obvious. I foolishly went 3 years without noticing, and smugly thought I had found a good woman. Daniel seemed a bit uncomfortable. "Maybe it's not necessary," I said with a smile. "Don't be polite. We are all family. What can't we use?" Only then did Daniel nod in agreement, indicating that it could be used freely. I returned home alone. I opened my phone. I clicked on the dashcam app. Daniel and Emily's faces immediately appeared on the screen, so close together. It felt like I could reach out and touch them. Emily still didn't know. I recently changed to a new smart dashcam. It allows me to check the surroundings of the car at any time through my phone. This is no different from surveillance. Daniel is sitting in the passenger seat, with his head slightly lowered, all the way. Neither of them said a word. It was as if they had never known each other. They arrived at their destination. Daniel hurriedly said thank you. He reached out to open the car door. At that moment, Emily suddenly grabbed his wrist. She suppressed her emotions. Her voice trembled slightly. "Daniel, between us, is there really no chance anymore?" She suddenly looked up, her eyes filled with hope and longing. "Daniel, just one word from you. I can cancel tomorrow's wedding." Daniel's eyes widened in surprise. "How can that be?" Old Christopher would be hurt, and all our friends and family would laugh at you. Even if we were together, we would still be blamed by everyone. "I don't care. I don't care about anything as long as I can be with you." Emily held him tightly. She embraced him forcefully, as if she wanted to merge him into her body. "Daniel, you understand. I never care what others think. I only want you." She gazed deeply at him. Her eyes were filled with emotion. Finally, she couldn't hold back any longer. She gently kissed his lips. Daniel instinctively responded, but he quickly snapped back to reality. He abruptly pushed Emily away. "No, this is too unfair to old Christopher." Daniel hurriedly opened the car door and rushed away from the scene. My stomach was churning. I really couldn't hold it anymore. I quickly dropped my phone and rushed to the bathroom, vomiting uncontrollably. By the end of it, only stomach acid was left. Only stomach acid is left. I picked up my phone. I saved that video. This marriage is definitely not going to happen. Fortunately, Emily and I originally planned to hold the wedding before getting the certificate. There are no legal ties between us, however. Emotionally, she owes me. This debt must be settled, since she's planning to leave with Daniel. Then I'll help her out at the wedding. Emily came back at 2 in the morning. There are only 6 hours left until our wedding. She saw me. A hint of impatience flashed across her face, almost imperceptible. "You're still awake?" "Yeah, still awake." I pretended to walk up happily. I grabbed her arm, but Emily immediately withdrew her hand. Both of our movements suddenly stopped. Emily finally came to her senses. She quickly said, "I haven't taken a shower yet. I'm not very clean." After saying that, she hurriedly walked towards the bathroom. My sense of smell is very keen. I suddenly smelled the fragrance of jasmine. I couldn't help but ask her quietly, "When did you change your perfume?" Emily's movements halted again. She turned to glance at me, as if she was a bit annoyed. "Didn't you ask me to take your friend home? It might be the scent on him. Maybe it rubbed off a bit. Is that so?" I casually flipped open the album and handed it to her. "Guess what I just found." "What did you say?" Emily replied to me a bit impatiently. "Isn't there supposed to be a memory album at the wedding tomorrow? I found a group photo from your high school graduation." I pointed to the corner spot in the front row. Excitedly, I said, "Look, who is that Daniel?" In that moment, Emily's face turned pale. Her body seemed to wobble unsteadily. I said with an innocent smile, "So you two are old classmates. Why have you never told me?" The usually calm Emily showed a rare hint of panic on her face. She quickly snatched the photo back. The sharp corner of the photo scratched a long cut on my hand. She seemed not to have noticed. She was too busy talking. Really, I don't even remember. At that time, I was only focused on studying. I didn't pay any attention to which boys were in the class at all. I smiled and raised my eyebrows. "No wonder you were able to get into medical school. It turns out you put all your thoughts into studying." Emily saw that my expression didn't change, and finally let out a sigh of relief. She made an excuse to take a shower. She didn't notice my hand was injured the whole time. After I dealt with the wound by myself, I lay down. Only then did she slowly come over. A pair of hands suddenly wrapped gently around my waist. Realizing her intention, I felt a churn in my stomach again. I quickly covered my mouth, made a gagging sound. Emily immediately withdrew her hand. She asked me in a low voice, "What's wrong with you? I don't want you to touch me." She didn't wait for me to speak and turned around. She said softly, "Forget it, go to sleep. We have a wedding to attend tomorrow. Our happy days have just begun." His breathing gradually steadied. I breathed a sigh of relief. I walked to the balcony and lit a cigarette. I felt a bit lost. Emily looked really serious over the past 3 years. The happy and joyful times she spent with me flashed through my mind when my stomach hurt. She ran to buy me stomach medicine, drenched in sweat, on my birthday. She always remembered to prepare a special ceremony for me. She often took me to the amusement park to ride the Ferris wheel, helping me feel the regrets of my childhood. Just like my friends often say, loving someone is like nurturing a flower. At least for these 3 years, I have indeed been doing well. I've become increasingly happy. I always have a smile on my face, however, sometimes I still struggle and feel conflicted inside. Various emotions surge in my heart. Actually, Emily hasn't completely strayed physically. At least, she and Daniel haven't had an affair. Daniel wouldn't dare to do that. I tapped the ash off my cigarette. I glanced into the room, just in time to see Emily's phone screen light up. My heart stirred. I quietly walked over. I wanted to unlock her phone, but I found out she actually set a password. I tensed up all over, staring at those 6 confusing digits. It felt like being splashed with a bucket of cold water. I tried entering all our anniversaries and her birthday, but none of them worked in the end. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. I entered Daniel's birthday and unlocked my phone. I suddenly felt weak all over. I sat directly on the ground. I opened Alipay. Emily saw the message from Daniel. "Emily, after getting married, will you still love me like you used to in this moment?" All my worries, hesitations, guilt, and regrets all disappeared. I calmly closed my phone. I stood up. Emily opened her eyes. She grabbed my hand and asked, "Why aren't you sleeping yet? You need to get up and get ready to do your makeup." I said while taking out my phone. I sent the saved video to Daniel's wife from a stranger's number. I added a line, "Ems Fu, you know about Mr. Daniel's past at 7:30. Emily hurriedly called me. Her voice sounded very anxious. "Christopher, has Daniel not arrived yet?" "Yeah," I said calmly. "Why are you panicking? It's just that the best man hasn't arrived. Isn't the groom here?" Emily took a deep breath. "Go ahead. I'm not in a hurry. But the time for the wedding procession is approaching. The best man still hasn't come. How are we supposed to go to the wedding?" I said casually, "Don't worry. Old Daniel is always reliable. He definitely won't be late." But I called him. He didn't answer. Emily lost her usual composure. She said word by word, "Daniel wouldn't ignore a call without reason." I lifted my eyelids. I smiled meaningfully. "Really? Looks like you know your old classmate pretty well." Emily suddenly fell silent. I cleared my throat. I pretended to exclaim, "I was just kidding you. You actually believed it." She hasn't had a chance to speak yet. I continued to speak. "Daniel just messaged me. He said something came up at home. He won't make it to pick up the bride, but he will definitely be there for the wedding ceremony." Emily looked at me suspiciously. "Really?" I replied. "Such a big deal. How could I possibly lie to you? I said with a smile. Besides, is he my good buddy or your good buddy? You should worry about your bridesmaid duties. After saying that, I hung up the phone. I looked down. The phone screen displayed a message from Daniel. He wrote, "Old Christopher, come help me out." I hummed a tune and replied, "What's wrong? Did she hit you again? I'll call someone to help you right away." Daniel's wife, fiancée. There has been a record of domestic violence. This matter. Not many people understand, after all. A grown man being hit by a woman. It's indeed not very honorable if it gets out, as far as I know. He was afraid of losing face. He didn't even tell his parents, let alone his ex-girlfriend Emily. He definitely wouldn't tell her. After the long wedding ceremony ended, it was almost 11 o'clock noon. Daniel still hadn't shown up. As the wedding ceremony was about to begin, Emily hurriedly pushed the door open and came in. She grabbed my arm and said, "Didn't you say Daniel would be here soon? Why is he still not here?" She suddenly realized her rudeness. She quickly let go of her hand. People around her looked at her with surprise. There was already a bruise on my arm. Emily frowned and asked, "How did this happen?" I suddenly felt my eyes redden. My face was full of frustration. What on earth happened? Emily was almost going crazy with worry. He urged her, "Hurry up and say it." "I'm very worried too," she replied helplessly. "Emily, I really don't know what to do. Daniel won't let me say anything." Emily anxiously paced back and forth. "What happened to him? Just tell me." The door to the dressing room was wide open. Because we were too loud, it suddenly attracted a lot of friends and family to watch. They didn't say anything, but their gazes towards Emily seemed to say everything. Finally, I couldn't help but speak up. "Daniel's wife has tendencies of domestic violence." Emily's expression darkened. She said, "He must be locked up at home." After saying that, she turned and rushed out. She was running so fast that she even lost a shoe. Another groomsman ran up to me and whispered to remind me, "Old Christopher, she and Daniel. She might be afraid the ceremony will be incomplete. We're missing a best man, right?" I said softly. As soon as I finished speaking, everyone looked at me. I looked at you. No one dared to say anything more. I had already changed my clothes. It was finally 10 minutes before the wedding started. Emily still hasn't come back. Everyone was very anxious. My mom was especially angry. A best man. Isn't that more important than the auspicious time of the wedding? In-laws. Is little Emily not coming back? Is this wedding still happening or not? Emily has always been the pride of the Emily family. She is also the most innocent one in her social circle. Now, all the relatives and friends are gathered together. Some truly worry about Emily, while some secretly feel a bit of schadenfreude. Could it be? Emily's image is going to be a problem. I stood by the side. I'm feeling a bit wronged. Uncle and aunt. I just found out too. Emily and my good friend Daniel are high school classmates. Is there something you haven't told me? As soon as the words were spoken, the door suddenly burst open. Daniel rushed in with a face full of injuries. As soon as he saw me, he excitedly said, "Old Christopher, I'm sorry I'm late. I didn't miss your good time, did I?" Everyone was staring at him. He sensed some unspoken meaning in those gazes. He nervously rubbed the hem of his clothes. He said softly, "I'm sorry. I got into a car accident on the way. That's why I'm late." Suddenly, with a loud bang, a cup of hot coffee flew over from behind him. "Daniel, get away from me." A woman angrily ran over. She slapped Daniel hard across the face. She shouted angrily, "How dare you betray me? Go provoke other women." I rushed forward. I stood in front of Daniel. "What's wrong with you? Today is my wedding day." "Daniel, are you okay? Don't worry, I'm here for you. No one can hurt you." I tightly held Daniel's head. Fu-Yaimai stared at my back. Suddenly, she burst into loud laughter. She muttered a curse indistinctly. She grabbed a chair nearby and threw it at me and Daniel. Everything happened too quickly. No one had time to react. Emily suddenly rushed over and stood in front of Daniel in front of everyone. The chair hit her back. It shattered into pieces. The broken chair leg grazed my arm, leaving a trail of blood. Everyone shouted in panic, "Where's the security? Quick, call security. Hurry, take this person away." In the midst of chaos, Daniel shouted in a low voice, "Don't mind me. Quick, go take care of old Christopher. Have you lost your mind?" Emily finally came to her senses. As if suddenly realizing something, she hurriedly ran towards me. Does it hurt? She just opened her mouth to ask. Fu Yaimai was pinned to the ground by security, her face pressed against the cold, hard floor, suddenly burst into loud laughter. Idiot, she shouted at me. Do you know why I hit him? He actually kept it from me that he was having an affair with someone else. Christopher, you're still in the dark. Thought you married a perfect woman. Let me tell you. The person Daniel was secretly flirting with, it's her, Emily. At that moment, the whole place was in an uproar. Everyone looked at each other. Let me take a look at you. They started whispering among themselves. They openly accused her loudly, traitorous, irresponsible, immoral. These words rushed into Emily's ears all at once. The perfect woman image she had been maintaining was now in jeopardy. She immediately let go of Daniel's hand, walking towards me. Christopher, don't believe her. She's just talking nonsense. What evidence do you have? What does your husband's matter have to do with me? Don't accuse people recklessly. After she said this, it's not just me. Even Daniel immediately turned to look at her. He couldn't believe his ears, doubting whether he heard it wrong, but the facts are right in front of us. This woman, for her own reputation, actually didn't hesitate to abandon the man she claimed to love deeply. Fu Yaimai laughed maniacally. Emily said to Daniel, Mr. Daniel, you go tell Christopher. There is nothing between her and me. Daniel stared at him, his gaze gradually dimmed. He took a deep breath, slowly closed his eyes. His voice was low and hoarse. He said slowly, Old Christopher, between her and me, there really is nothing. Don't overthink it. At that moment, the wedding march suddenly began to play. I looked down at my watch. The timing was just right. This is the perfect time that Emily and I agreed upon. We are in the audience, putting on another grand performance. Just then, the big screen suddenly lit up. The dazzling light instantly drew everyone's attention. Emily's face appeared on the screen. She turned her head, suddenly kissed Daniel forcefully on the lips. At that moment, Emily's face instantly turned pale. She lost all her strength. She collapsed directly onto the ground. After the wedding, the phone kept ringing. Emily called me over 30 times. It made me feel uneasy. Her messages kept coming to my phone. Christopher, listen to me. There's really nothing between Daniel and me. We did date in the past, but that was a long time ago. That night, I did drink a bit too much, but I only thought of you. 99 unread messages. I didn't even want to look. I just swiped a few times on the screen, and I blocked all of Emily's contact information. That wedding ended up as a joke and a farce among friends and family. It was even recorded by the staff on site and uploaded online. It quickly went viral. Emily's perfect image built over the years collapsed overnight. All friends and family, when they talk about her, it's just Anno, that two-faced person. Because the matter has spread widely online, the hospital believes she has caused a negative impact. They decided to suspend her without pay. Daniel was outed for cheating. He was kicked out by the Fu family. Daniel's family felt he was a disgrace. They kept him locked at home. He lost his freedom from then on. Regarding Miss Fu Yaimai, a video involving her and domestic violence spread widely online. It attracted attention and resonance from many men. Some people expressed their feelings. Finally, someone noticed the situation of men suffering from domestic violence. Men can also be harmed. I hope everyone can face this issue squarely. Netizens began to boycott all businesses of the Fu family. This led to a sharp decline in the Fu family's stock prices. The entire industry was on the brink overnight, facing the edge of collapse. I became the object of sympathy and concern. Taking advantage of this opportunity, with my mother's support, I opened a cafe. Because of the high-quality ingredients used, plus I have some fame, the cafe became popular overnight. It became a top-ranking internet celebrity store on social media. Made quite a bit of money. Half a month after the wedding, I received a text message from Daniel. He asked me, Old Christopher, why did you treat me like this? I understand. He has come to his senses. I realized that all of this was a trap I set. I never hurt you. Emily liked me for many years, but I kept rejecting her. You also saw that video that day. He came over to kiss me. I immediately pushed him away because I was afraid of hurting you. But what about you? What did you do? Do you know that I have nothing now?" Seeing him say this seriously, I couldn't help but want to laugh. I originally didn't want to pay attention to him, but he kept being persistent. He would message me from time to time. I really couldn't hold back anymore. I simply called him directly. "Daniel, you believe you are completely blameless. Is that so? You feel wronged. You think you have been protecting me for the past 3 years. Yet I am repaying kindness with enmity." Daniel remained silent, but his heavy breathing made me understand. He agreed with what I said. I couldn't help but laugh. "Daniel, if you really wanted to protect me, you should have told me everything when you first learned about Emily's plan." His breathing suddenly became rapid. I spoke slowly. "You have always been accommodating. Was it truly for my sake, or were you trying to hide your own desire to show off and outdo others? Imagine this. I think she loves me deeply, but in reality she is crazily in love with you. Isn't that something to boast about?" "Daniel, Daniel, such a friend like you, it's truly disappointing." I've said all I wanted to say. He hung up the phone directly. He added his number to the blacklist. From that day on, I completely lost contact with Emily. The next time I saw him, it was a long time later. That night, I finished cleaning the cafe. I was about to lock the door. Suddenly, a figure rushed over and hugged me tightly. She emitted a particularly foul smell, a strong odor of alcohol, and the stench of not having bathed for a long time. These smells mixed together made me unable to help but bend over and vomit all over the place. Emily stood there awkwardly, with a face full of frustration. "Christopher, when you see me, you feel uncomfortable." I frowned, just as I was about to shake my head. I saw a glimmer of excitement in her eyes. "Christopher, I knew it. You still love me." I was a bit confused. How could she think like this? "Are you being too confident?" I said with a smile. "You're overthinking it." I haven't finished speaking. She suddenly grabbed my hand. She said excitedly, "Christopher, you can't even imagine how important this matter is to me. As long as you reconcile with me, all the rumors will naturally disappear. We can be as good as we were before. You and I and our child, in the future we will be happier." After listening to her words, I couldn't help but sneer inside. Up until now, is she still thinking of using me? I coldly pulled my hand back. Emily quickly continued, "Christopher, I know I was wrong. I apologize to you. I'm willing to kneel if you want me to." I couldn't hold back. I laughed out loud. I looked her up and down with a disdainful gaze. I said lightly, "Then you should kneel." Emily was taken aback for a moment. She hesitated and said, "But seeing that I didn't respond, she clenched her teeth, as if she had made up her mind. She really knelt down with a thud. She knelt in front of me. I looked down at her. The frustration in my heart suddenly disappeared. I finally let go of my inner turmoil. But no matter what, I cannot forgive her. I locked the door, preparing to leave. She hurried over and grabbed me. "Christopher, I've already knelt down." I turned my head and said coldly, "When did I ever say that if you kneel, I would definitely forgive you?" Her face suddenly turned pale. Emily was determined not to let me leave. She suddenly stood up and tightly grabbed my clothes, spoke firmly, "Christopher, what more do you want? I've already apologized to you. I just kissed Daniel. There was no deeper contact. Why do you have to hold on to this? We could have gotten along very well." I turned to look at her. Her face looked particularly gloomy under the dim streetlight. She suddenly laughed softly. "Emily, up to now, do you still think I know nothing?" Emily suddenly stopped, asked, "What do you mean by that?" I sighed. Patiently explained to her, "Only I know about Daniel being abused. That video was taken in my car. So you still don't understand." Emily was stunned. Her face was filled with surprise. She probably never anticipated that all of this was a play I arranged, from selecting actors to choosing the stage. This scene is arranged flawlessly. The three of them can't escape, and I gained quite a bit from it. I became the biggest beneficiary. Emily is trembling all over. It seems she didn't see this coming at all. I usually appear to be honest, yet I actually have such thoughts. She reached out in surprise, stammering. She said, You. I gently shook my head and smiled. I took a cigarette from the pack. After lighting it, I put it in my mouth. The evening wind blew the ashes everywhere. My expression darkened. I said coldly, "Emily, you think you controlled me for 3 years, but it was only because I truly believed your lies back then. I smiled faintly. Actually, we don't understand each other at all. The next time I heard news about Emily, she was no longer working at the hospital. Because of the commotion online, it has caused dissatisfaction among many people towards the hospital. After multiple discussions, the hospital leadership ultimately decided to dismiss her. That day, Emily ran to the rooftop of the hospital, shouting that she wanted to commit suicide. She thought it would evoke sympathy from everyone. But the comments in the live stream were filled with cold remarks. Why isn't she jumping yet? I'm getting a bit tired of waiting. Is she just acting again? I'm really tired. Just jump already. After you jump, I can go eat. I'm almost starving to death. She stood at the edge of the rooftop. The firefighters also arrived. At the last moment, she suddenly ran away like a fleeing soldier, panicking and leaving. Since then, she has been like a rat crossing the street, pointed at and criticized everywhere, unable to stand tall anymore. Later, it was when my cafe opened its 10th chain store in the city, I saw her again. Compared to her vibrant self from before, she has lost a lot of weight. She is almost skin and bones. She used to be a neat freak, but now she is living a terrible life. I heard that she is having a hard time finding a job. She can only rely on delivering takeout to make a living. The medical skills she learned before are completely useless now. But even though life is so hard, she still specially bought me a bouquet of roses. She had someone deliver the flowers to me. As I stood on stage, the moment I looked at her, her eyes were filled with surprise. She excitedly raised her hand and waved, shouting my name loudly. Christopher, that's me. But right after that, I frowned. With a look of disgust, I directly threw the bouquet into the nearby trash can. I said coldly, "Don't shove everything into my hands." I turned my head, not looking at the despair in her eyes anymore. I want to embrace a better and broader future.